Hi everybody, Melissa here from Bee and Cozy Stitching. And this time we're going to continue on with our What Inspires You When You've Lost Your Mojo. Now last time I hinted around that we were actually going to use these different shirtings that we cut out in a previous video on how to harvest fabric. I'll put a link down below so that you can watch that video and get yourself caught up to speed. Try something different. Step out of your box. Try a different fabric. See what you can do with it. See what you can make. If nothing else, you can clean out your closets and then you can go buy new stuff. Or clean out your husband's closet because he's probably got more fabric in his shirts than you do in yours. But anyway, either way, it doesn't matter. Now, we had talked about in our Get Your Mojo Back video that, because the party was over, that I found some inspiration in a magazine. And I really suggest that you pick this magazine up because there's a lot of really good stuff in here, especially for us scrap people. Now, this is the American Patchwork and Quilting, and it is, and I'm going to look just because I don't want to inform you wrong, it's issue number 170. And it was displayed until 6/4/21, so you're probably going to have to go back into the archives to find this one. But really, truly, there's a lot of really great scrap projects in this one. So, because I know you love scraps as much as I do, you might really want to have this one. But anyway, inside there was this pattern here. And it was called Flying the Flag. I just wanted to make sure I got it right. And so this is the project that we're going to be making with all of our different shirtings. And as you can see, because it's a flag, you're going to need reds, whites, blues, and of course, I've got a big gob pile of blue. I've got a pretty good pile of white, and I've got a wah-wah pile of red. Because it's the flag, it's going to require a lot of red fabric being used in it. So what I thought I would do was add to this from my scrap pile, and that way I could get some different textures and some different looks going, and I could use up some of my red scraps. And who knows, if I find a red shirt along the way when I'm out thrifting, I'll pick it up and I'll throw it in here too, because I think that'd be kind of fun. So when we're thinking about what fabric should go in what pile, you can see this one here is a white background and it's got red, I'll call it boxing, checking squares on it. And so you kind of wonder, should it go in the red? Should it go in the white? Where should it be? For me, I'm going to put it into the white because when I squint my eyes and I look at this, I see more white than I do the red. So that leads me to believe that this is probably going to be a better white background category fabric. It won't be strong enough to hold my attention when I put it next to other reds, and so it's going to wash out and it's not going to look quite so good. It'll look like maybe the dye ran out of that fabric and it washed out, and so I will put it in the white pile. It'll look great there. I'll make sure maybe I put it next to some blues, maybe not next to the red, maybe next to the red. We'll see how it goes. Because these are scraps and because we harvested these fabrics from old clothing, we really get to play with these and we get to try and we get to find out what would look good next to each other. And really, truly, this is a fantastic way to learn color and color value and texture, and it doesn't cost you lots and lots of money. You don't have a lot invested in this. If it doesn't work out, throw it away. It doesn't matter. You harvested it out of old clothing because you wanted to keep it out of the landfills, or at least that's why I do it, because I'm very passionate about cutting down on what we put into our landfills. So even if it ends up in the landfill, it will have taught me something. I will have experimented with it. And, you know, there's that offbeat chance that because I tried something out of the box, it turned out perfect. And I love it and I'll keep it forever. So the very first thing that we have to do, and I'm not going to give you any cutting sizes or directions because I'm going to leave that up to you and base it upon what you have in your scrap piles. Now, maybe you don't want to make one quite as big as this one. Maybe, now what did this one finish at? This one finished at 68.5 by 90.5. So it's a pretty good sized quilt. Maybe you just want to do a little wall hanging. Maybe you just want to try the technique to see if you even like working with shirts. So what I'm going to tell you is you need to start with strips. So you need to take whatever size strips you want. 1.5 inch, 2.5 inch, 3.5 inch, 4.5 inch. I don't think you should go any bigger than 4.5 inches because I just don't think you'll get enough variety or texture. And I don't know, unless you're making a king-sized quilt, I really wouldn't go any bigger than a 4.5 inch strip of fabric. Then when you come in with your 4.5 inch strip of fabric, because it's 4.5 inches long, you're going to need to make it 4.5 inches wide because you need a square and you need a rectangle in order to make the block for this pattern. And I've done a little bit of pre-cutting. So, boy, it's going to be hard for you to see though, because they're white. So when I took my strips, I ended up with a square, and then I ended up with a rectangle. Now the rectangle is twice the size of your square. So if you're using a 4.5 inch strip of fabric and you've got a 4.5 inch block, you need a 4.5 by 8.5 inch rectangle. Okay, now you see why I say don't go any bigger than a 4.5 inch strip, because it's going to get to be too big and too large and too boring, maybe? I don't know. Maybe it'll be great. I don't know. If you feel like trying it, go for it. Try it. Let me know how it works out. I would love to see it when you're done with it. I think that would be fun. But for our example, you're going to cut yourself a square and you're going to cut a rectangle twice the size of your square. So if you're using a 1.5 inch strip, your square is going to be 1.5 inches because the square has to be whatever size the strip is cut at. So again, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, that's what your squares are going to be. Then to make your rectangle, you're going to double that. So if you're doing a 1.5 inch square, you need a 2.5 inch rectangle. Not real difficult. The math is pretty easy. So go ahead and collect all your shirtings or your scraps, or I don't care, new fabric, whatever you want to use to make this project and to have fun with us. Go ahead and get your fabrics, and then you're going to go ahead and cut all your fabrics. Now, you're going to need, oh my goodness, according to the pattern, if you cut the size of the pattern, you need 510 squares. So what I would tell you, which is my rule of thumb, when I find a pattern that I like, and I'm not necessarily going to follow their directions, I'm pretty much going to look at the picture and then figure it out on my own from there, which is kind of what I do all the time anyway. But I know I'm going to need a huge amount of my squares, and I know I'm going to need at least half that amount of my squares. So what I would tell you is, if you're going to cut 100 squares out, you should cut at least 50 rectangles out, if not 100 rectangles, you know, even amounts, whatever. I don't necessarily count what I cut. Basically, I'm looking at my piles and I want to get them all cut up, because I don't want these great big tied up bundles of fabric strips laying around anymore, flopping around, getting wrinkled, driving me crazy because I have to pick it up and move it somewhere else. What I want to do is get a nice, neat, collected, cut Ziploc bag. Whoop, they all kind of fell. I kind of figured they would, but that's okay. But anyway, I want to get all my strips cut into these two shapes that we talked about, a square and a rectangle, and I want to get them put into a Ziploc bag. That way they're protected. They're not going to get dirty. They're not going to get wrinkled. And the bag itself, if I want to, I can put it in a box and use it later. If I don't, it's a great way to keep all my pieces together. As I start to sew my pieces together, I may get another another Ziploc bag and put the ones that are sewn together into that bag. And then they're ready for putting into rows and blocks and whatever we need to finish this quilt out. It's manageable, it's neat, it's tidy. Clearly, if we're doing a flag, I am not going to need all of these blue strips of fabric. This is way too much, and this is way too small, because let's face it, in a flag we have the majority of red and white fabric. We've got a small field of blue and then just scads of white and red. So I'm going to need to add to this. This isn't enough, and I know it's not enough. But if it's all cut up and it's all ready to go, then I can use it whenever the mood strikes and I feel like sewing and I want to get some stuff done, because it'll all be pre-cut and waiting for me. And because there's very simple pieces involved and very simple directions involved, it's going to be one of those projects where if I only have 5 or 10 minutes here or there, it's going to be perfect to put it together. So what I would like all of you to do is select a size strip that you would like to use, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, whatever that happens to be. And then I would like you to strip all of your fabrics. And then I would like you to cut them into your square and then cut them into your rectangle and put them into a Ziploc bag. We may have to add fabric to it. We may have a bunch of it left over. I promise you, I have more projects. I will show you how to use up whatever you've got left over. Your cutting isn't going to be wasted. Don't worry about how many you cut. Just cut a bunch. Throw them in a bag. If we have to make more, we'll make more. If we have enough, then we'll find another project to use up all of the scraps that we have left over. So, all you need to do for this time around is to strip your fabric in the size square that you want to work with, cut squares and rectangles, and put them into a Ziploc bag. Excuse me, the fabric is getting in my throat because I keep flinging it around because I talk with my hands. Isn't that always the case? But anyway, so that's what we're going to do for this week. We're going to get our fabric stripped. We're going to get it cut up. We're going to get it put in the bag and organized and ready to go. You're going to find your pattern. Go back in the archives with Better Homes, American Patchwork and Quilting. It's made by Better Homes and Gardens. But go ahead and find that June issue number 170. And go ahead and get yours ordered. And then next time we meet in part 2, we're gonna show you how to put your blocks together, and we'll go from there. And before you know it, we're gonna have our quilt all done and finished and ready to go, just in time for upcoming holidays, Memorial Weekend, 4th of July, Labor Day, whatever, whenever, whatever. Americana is always in style. It never goes out of style. Let's hear it for the red, white, and blue. Anyway, that's what I have for you this week. I'm so excited that you stopped in. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining me. And thanks for using up your scraps, because this is an awesome project. And what a fun way to get a free quilt out of old clothes. That's what I've got for this week. I will see you next week, and we'll dive into part 2 and getting our blocks put together on our journey for making this Fly the Flag quilt. That's all for now. Bye!